Today on What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure Stories of Innate podcast, I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Charity Ruebke. I'm excited because she is not only a chiropractor, she is also my sister, and she's just an awesome human. So thanks for being here, Dr. Charity.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
It is, because what I would love to do is you have a great story, and I would love for you to then share it from your perspective now as a chiropractor and just show people a little bit of your insights. So, start back at the beginning. You had kind of a rough start in this world. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I had to make a little bit of an entrance. So I'm the seventh born, as you know, of 10 kids. And when I was born, I had something called shoulder dystocia. So that is basically where during the birthing process, my shoulders got stuck. So when this happens, it can cause a problem because it can delay oxygen to the brain. So when I was born, I was actually not breathing. I was clinically dead, technically. So brain damage kind of starts around 10 minutes. Thankfully, I didn't get to that point, but it is pretty intense because you do have to maneuver the baby out to kind of get those shoulders unstuck. So I was resuscitated. They did CPR on me, oxygen, all that good stuff. Started breathing, of course. Started crying, haven't stopped since. And then the next day, I was actually taken to a chiropractor. They worked on my neck, they worked on my head, and all that really good stuff. And I was completely fine.
Yes. Okay, this is really powerful for me because I was there at your birth and saw this happening. How old was I? I was 11. Mm-hmm. And so this is also, so often we hear stories of births, and we don't want this to be something that is scary either. We love to see beautiful stories in the world, but sometimes going into these hard stories of wow, what happened and how did that happen? And we don't want it to be something that is scary for women, but I think it's also so good to see this story of hope on the other side of it too. So I remember part of it was because your shoulders were stuck, like you said, that shoulder dystocia, your head was born for so many minutes. And even as an 11-year-old, it was that seems wrong. It seems like, the rest of the baby should just be born quickly and easily. And, sometimes there's different interventions that can happen. But what I'd love for you to talk about is just in a normal, regular birth, there's a fair amount of pressure on a baby's spine. So what would be happening on a baby that had that kind of shoulder dystocia and was stuck for that long? What would be happening in their spine?
Yeah. So, like you said, birth is already kind of hard on our spine, on our back, on all that, especially the neck. Babies, their bones have to be mostly cartilage so they can fit through there because it is so much pressure on their spine, which can cause so many subluxations. It can cause, colicky babies, them to, take a longer time to breathe. It can cause them to have a harder time with their bowel movements. So even during a normal, perfect birth where everything was just super easy and stuff, it is just so much on the baby to be born, which is why, their skulls are so malleable. They're not fused yet so that they can literally be, born easier. So, yeah.
Yeah. So in that, I want to note something because a lot of times we think chiropractic is for symptoms. Mm-hmm. So as a newborn, even after this rough birth, it wasn't like you had back pain for 20 years of bad posture. It wasn't like you had, lifted too heavy at the gym and had herniated a disc. You didn't really have symptoms or problems yet that next morning. And actually, the chiropractor came to us. He drove out and came to us to adjust you, which I think is just so precious and so awesome. So why would you want to check a newborn after a rough delivery? Why would you want to check a newborn after a great delivery?
Well, both things. The babies, obviously, they can't communicate. They can't tell you, hey, this spot's really sore. Hey, my neck hurts. That kind of stuff. All they can do is fuss. So a lot of times, colicky babies, they need that adjustment. That's just, they can't communicate that. And even some babies, they could be, really hurting in their neck from a very easy birth, but they just can't communicate it. So that's really important just to have their spine checked and make sure everything's good. And, being squished for 9 months is going to definitely affect some things. So yeah, that's really important, even after just a great birth or even especially after a difficult one to kind of make sure that their spines are all good.
Yeah. So you mentioned colic and you also mentioned just digestive issues. And I think sometimes we're not really clear how does working on a baby's neck, how does that translate to their gut and their digestion? What's the connection there? And how would you explain that to parents?
Yeah, so it's all about that nervous system. So the spinal cord is basically the home base for all of the phone lines that go out to the entire body. So if there's a problem at the very source, it's going to cause problems down the line. So someone could say, oh, my hand is numb, it's tingling, but my neck is fine. There's no problem there. It's like, well, actually, that's actually the source of it. The symptoms are in your hand. So it's really important to make sure that your foundation is strong, that, everything coming off of that is really good so that, those nerves that supply your digestive system, those nerves that, deal with pain and touch and growing and brain development is not getting interfered with at all. And that's like the main thing that we're checking for is we want to make sure that there's no interference, that power's flowing, everything's good, that body's able to communicate with itself, receive input back so that, you don't burn yourself when you touch something that's too hot. You're not dropping stuff because your muscles can't feel it. Babies can latch on easier because, their brain can communicate to tell them, hey, this is how you do it. This is what you need to do. So yeah, that's kind of like going to the source of it all is what's really going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something really important too, was that babies have the limited range of communication that we understand. And as, tuned in as parents can be to kind of like, oh, I think the baby is hungry. I think the baby is sleepy. Like we start learning that individual baby and picking up on those cues. Also, babies don't have the ability to believe in chiropractic. They don't have the ability to be like, have a placebo effect.
Right.
Which I think is really interesting because it can't just be that, oh, the baby is, believing in this doctor because, she's such a wonderful, warm person. The baby is just either functioning or doing better or it's not. There isn't an amount of placebo effect in there, which I find interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like that with animals too, where it's just a very pure reaction. You see the effects. There's no trickery. There's no smoke and mirrors or anything like that. You see the results, which is really cool.
Yes. Also going back to, like you talked about the pressure on a baby's neck and spine in a normal birth. And what is so interesting is, after a newborn is born, what do we always say when we hand the baby off to somebody else is we're like, watch their neck. So I can imagine that parents bringing a baby to a chiropractor for the first time is like, are you going to be careful with my baby? So tell us, what is a pediatric, what is a newborn adjustment like?
There definitely is a lot of fear with new parents about this beautiful thing that is now their entire responsibility. So a lot of times they think that, newborn adjustments, pediatric adjustments are going to be the same as an adult. And it's very different. For one thing, babies are more cartilage than bone, like ossified bone. So the adjustment has to also be much softer, more gentle. It's about the same amount of firmness as if you're just checking to see if a peach is ripe. You don't want to bruise that peach. You just want to check it a little bit, make sure there's a little give. And so there's no popping, cracking. There's no twisting, anything like that. There's no very forceful thrust on the baby's spine. It's very gentle. It's just kind of holding something in place and letting it just melt away. And the babies, their reaction is just so funny. I always tell them, you just see those babies relax. They have a sigh of relief. And it's, even if they're hungry and tired and that kind of thing, they're just done. They feel that relief and they're just like, ah. And the parents are like, oh my gosh. And you're like, yeah, this works. It helps.
That's awesome. Now, also, something that is fantastic is that you are certified in something called the Webster technique. Tell us how that is useful and how that helps to reduce the chances of a labor and delivery that is so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so difficult.
Yeah. So Webster technique is a just certain technique on how to adjust pregnant moms throughout their pregnancy. It's very effective. It's very safe. The three main things that it helps with is the position of the baby and how that pelvis is aligned. So it basically, if the pelvis is aligned, it gives that baby more room. Okay. We're not moving that baby or anything. We're just kind of helping out, the structure that it's in. The second thing is power. So by removing that nerve interference to the sacrum, to the pelvis, to that lower back, it's helping the body to be able to deliver much easier, to help muscles relax that need to, ones that need to tighten, which is really important during birth. So you're able to literally have more power to that area to give birth. The last thing is passage. So that baby needs to come through a very small area, which I know it doesn't seem like it when you're delivering babies at 10 centimeters, but it helps open up so that tailbone, it can easily shift during being pregnancy, through pregnancy, and then in labor. So it kind of helps open up that passage to make sure that tailbone's not in the way, those hips are aligned, because obviously you're carrying around all this extra weight for a long time. So your body's going to try and compensate, it's going to shift. So Webster just kind of helps correct that throughout the pregnancy. So then it makes the labor just much easier.
Yes, which I think is such a good thing to realize the areas of life where we can just be proactive. And you talked about fear. And I think especially, like, I remember being a first-time mom and being like, I'm not sure how birth is going to go. Is it really going to hurt that much? How am I going to handle that? How long is it going to be? And if we can be proactive with those things of making sure that that alignment is optimal, it isn't guaranteeing anything, but it is just making sure that we have done our part to make sure that that structure is good. And you'll hear women talk about like back labor where they're like, oh boy, the baby was in this position and my back hurt so much. And so what you're saying of making sure that pelvic alignment is good makes so much sense. And I think that that would be especially good for any woman who's had a difficult labor or had, back labor, to find a Webster-certified chiropractor and get an evaluation.
Right. Yeah.
Get an evaluation and see what they would say. The other thing is, I am a fairly small woman. I'm 5'3". And so, sometimes we think about like, well, bone structure, like your pelvis is the size that it is. But talk to us a little bit about like, what is the pelvic structure? And I think of bones as really fixed, but you're talking about being able to adjust it and shift it. So tell us how the pelvis is, because we don't often see, I have a spine up here, but we don't often see a model of a pelvis. So how can that shift, and does it twist? Explain that for us.
So the pelvis is basically two bones that are connected by pubic symphysis in the front, which is some cartilage, and then it's connected through ligaments and cartilage to your tailbone, which sits at the very back, which is a triangle shape, upside down triangle. So when pregnancy starts, your body actually releases a hormone called relaxin, which lives up to its name. It relaxes those ligaments, relaxes those muscles to actually allow your pelvis to move much easier to accommodate a growing baby. So that's really great, but it also makes the pelvis a little bit more unstable. So things can be moving too much. One can be stuck, causing the other one to compensate. So it does put you at a little bit more risk for more back pain, more hip issues. You'll often hear pregnant moms talk about like, my hips are just killing me. They're just aching. They could be, in the back, it could be in the front, it could be on the sides, like they're just hurting. And so especially during pregnancy, it's going to be a little bit more amplified. So getting that adjusted, making sure that as things are relaxing, which is important, it's relaxing in a good way. That's not impeding any, nerve flow. It's not causing any interference, which is really important when you're then going into labor.
That's awesome. I love that you explained that this is all tying in like neurology, like body chemistry, bone structure, because otherwise, sometimes some women think maybe I just have too small of a bone structure. And so to know that your whole body is working together in those ways to make an incredible process happen is really excellent. Is there anything else that you would want pregnant women or new parents to know about chiropractic?
Oh gosh. I think it's just so important. It's just so great. It can help in so many areas of your life, and like basically every aspect. There's so many things that I just, knowing, I kind of assume everyone knows. And then, I get to talk to people and they're like, wait, what? Chiropractic can help with like headaches. It can help with like my knees. It can help with my IBS. And it's like, yeah, absolutely it can, because it's just your body that's doing the healing. This is just removing that interference so your body can do what it does best, which is take care of you. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, I'm so grateful for your life. I'm so grateful that you started breathing. Good job. But I'm also so grateful that, within that first 24 hours, you were adjusted, because then the result is almost the things that we don't see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after a difficult birth, you were not a fussy baby. You were not a colicky baby. You were not a constipated baby. You slept well. You latched well. You just truly didn't have any significant issues of any kind. You were just the sweetest, happiest baby straight from heaven, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like shoulder dystocia is very serious and it can cause so many issues. Like it can cause cerebral palsy, it can cause blindness, it can cause, brain development problems. So it is like very crazy that I was so okay.
Yes. Well, and also just the interventions, because of that seriousness, the interventions that can happen, such as like breaking a baby's clavicle, so that shoulder will be able to collapse and birth will happen. And that's what is so, just the harsh reality, that it's better for a baby to heal a broken clavicle than to have that kind of brain damage. So I love it that this is part of your story, that you were adjusted so that you could just thrive like you were meant to, and then that you've become a chiropractor so that you can help others to thrive too.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all full circle. I love it.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing, and I'm going to put in the show notes where you can find Pediatric chiropractors, Webster-certified chiropractors, and Dr. Charity is up in Raytown, Missouri, so you can find all of that information in the show notes, and anything else you're looking for, reach out and we would love to help.